Welcome to Sword and Shield, the official podcast of the 960th Cyberspace Wing. Join us for insight, knowledge, mentorship, and some fun as we discuss relevant topics in and around our wing. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any particular person or business is ever intended.
Awesome. Welcome to another episode of the Sword and Shield. Today, this is Chief Master Sergeant Howard, 960th Cyber Operations Group Superintendent. And today with me, I have
Colonel Mark Estlund, the incoming commander of the 960th Cyberspace Operations Group.
Awesome. Welcome aboard, sir. Look forward to having you as part of the group and leading us forward. What I was hoping for was, could you give us a little bit of insight about your trek through the Air Force?
Sure. So I went to school at the University of Minnesota up in Minneapolis and went through the ROTC program there. And that's where I got my commission. My first duty station was at Ellsworth Air Force Base as a brand new second lieutenant, where I started off in base visual information and then transitioned into the WICP, the Wing Initial Communication Package, as the deputy flight commander for the Mission Systems Flight, which was a great opportunity in the comm world. From there, I was fortunate enough to get an assignment to Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Started off as an exec for the logistics group and then transitioned over to the 86th Comm Squadron. There, I got my first real leadership opportunity as the Telecommunications Systems Flight Commander, which was the largest telephone switch in Europe for military. Happened to be assigned with a young airman, Howard.
Yes.
Played soccer with him, as we remember now. After Ramstein, which was a great assignment, I went to the National Capital Region, and I was at the National Reconnaissance Office, doing primarily enterprise systems management, making sure that there were printers and computers on all the desks at the NRO. From there, I was fortunate enough to get a school slot and went to the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, which was a wonderful experience. Got a master's degree in computer science. After that, to Offutt Air Force Base at U.S. Strategic Command, where I was program manager for the MCCC, the Mobile Command and Control Center, which was part of our nuclear command and control system. And at that point, I transitioned out of active duty in 2007 and joined the Air Force Reserve. I started off with DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and I was there for a couple of years. And in 2013, Colonel Terry called me up and asked me if I wanted to take command of the 610th Information Operations Flight, which then was redesignated the 960th Network Operations Flight. 960th Network Warfare Flight. And so that was when I came into the wing for the first time. We were the SIOG back then. And so I was very fortunate to be part of the initial stand-up of the SIOG. Commanded the 960th Network Warfare Flight for 4.5 years. And then I was fortunate enough to get promoted, went back to U.S. STRATCOM as a Battle Watch commander, and most recently I've been on orders supporting the J3, the operations director, as their chief of staff, and now I'm back. And so as a civilian, I'm also employed at U.S. STRATCOM, conducting requirements management for the nuclear command and control system. So we look at the big nuclear command and control enterprise, understand where the gaps are, work the POMs and the budget submissions, and then track the projects to keep that system alive and healthy. I'm married to my wife, Christy, for the last almost 25 years, and we have 3 kids, Bryn, who's 22, Haley, who's 18, and Sam, who's 17. And that's a quick synopsis of who I am and where I've been.
Awesome, sir. No, I really appreciate it, right? One of the things that we always look towards our leaders is kind of what that experience they have, where they've been, where they're coming from. And that leads me to my first question. being part of what was the SIOG, as the Network Warfare Flight Commander, to now being the commander of the Cyber Operations Group under a wing. Coming in the door, what are some of the first things that you notice that are different from what we were to what we are today?
I would just start with evolution. I mean, I heard Colonel Jones say this in a podcast, and Colonel Terry, who was the initial SIOG commander, used to say this all the time: is we're flying the plane while we're building it.
Right.
And those early days, it really was. It was everybody was trying to figure out, how do we make this thing happen? How do we create this organization and get it off and running and be an asset to the bigger Air Force? And as I've watched from a distance, the 5 years that I was with the group, and then now that I've watched it as a distance, just seeing the steps that the wing has taken, specifically under Colonel Jones, the last couple of years, to really develop into a wing and the functions that you see in a wing, and folks trying to get out there and be a force multiplier for active duty. That's the biggest thing I've seen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to kind of tap into that one word you used, is evolution, right? So, we already date ourselves a little bit, but, going back to our Ramstein days where both of us were base comm, and then we worked some expeditionary comm as well. But it was comm, right? And now today we have the moniker of cyber. I was wondering if you could kind of tell me what you thought of that transition from comm to cyber, what that's kind of looked like, and maybe where you see that heading.
Yeah, I know for me personally, so when I was in college, I mean, I had a soft undergraduate degree, and they told me I was going to be a comm officer. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And I got to the base, and really it was, we were part of the mission support group. We were putting the computers on desks. We were building antenna fields. We were keeping the LMRs running. But it was all in support of the flying operations. It was all about to get the airplanes taken off, help them with their scheduling, very repair oriented and reactive. Whereas as we become cyber operations, the key word there is operations. We are a weapon system. We are a domain that we can execute operations on. And so that's really, evolution is a great word. We used to be just, how do I help the operators do their job? And now it's, okay, I am an operator. I am a weapon system. I can affect the outcome of a situation. And that's really the evolution that I've seen over the last 25 years.
Right. No, I fully agree, sir. Right. So we went from comm being a support function, right? And that's really what it was. When we were working at Ramstein, we worked digital European backbone. We worked the phone switch when any contingency happened out there, and any of that AOR that we were responsible for, everything reached back through us to get back to CONUS. And now when we look at cyber operations and what that looks like, right, that keyword that you hit many times there was operations. So the mindset instantly has to change, right? So part of that evolution is where do we focus and where do we look? We're no longer a support function, but we are that leading edge of the spear. In some cases, the tip of the spear, right? As we go through the units, you'll see that we'll have ops floors, we'll have weapon systems, and we'll have individuals sit in those consoles. So we have our airmen in that AOR every day when they come to that console. So we're actually fighting as a war fighter compared to just being that support. With that, kind of want to lead to now that you're taking the seat, what are some of the things that you are looking for as we start this new adventure with you at the helm?
Going back to the evolution, we need to continue to evolve. I mean, even RegAF, active duty folks, are still trying to find a way to use cyber effectively. And so we're going to follow that suit. So it's not only find our own way to operationalize and affect the battle space, it's how do we team up with RegAF? How do we become a force multiplier? I think that's really where I'm going to really try and build relationships with the active duty cyber wings, with Cyber Command. I mentioned I work at Stratcom as a civilian. Stratcom was Cyber Command. Cyber Command was under Stratcom, and we still see those conversations of how do we build cyber into our operations plans, and how do we use cyber to affect the outcomes of our national agendas and our national interests. And so if I can, start working through making us effectively operational, not just operational, but, plugging us into the bigger war effort, that would be where I would hope to achieve some success.
Sure. No, some good points, right? I think quite often we still have a lot of outsiders that look at us more of that support function versus the operations. So how do we get our foot in the door and really develop that relationship at Stratcom and other the COCOMs, and then even at the wing and unit level to make sure that cyber is prevalent. Cyber is key to any of the O plans that we talk about. And then on top of that, how does the reserves come fit in that place, right? So looking at RegAF, it seems like it's just inherent, but they have their own problems. Then we add that slice that we have reserve associate units. Is there any words of advice of how do we build those relationships at that unit level, being a previous unit commander?
Yeah, for me, it was forcing myself into a room and requiring my fellow commanders to have an audience with me and expressing to them, we want to be part of the fight. We want to be relevant and be a force provider for you. And then you have to show that you're capable of doing so. So you have to walk the walk, and then or talk the talk, then you have to walk the walk. And if you can get in those doors, tell them what you can provide, put some of your shiny stars out on their ops floors to participate with them, and they see, wow, these guys actually know what they're doing. They become more receptive of, okay, now how do we plug them in a bigger capacity? And so definitely that's going to be the conversations with the squadrons going forward is, what are your relationships with your active duty partners? How are you providing them manpower or resources to show how good we really are, and then taking advantage of that?
Yes, sir. And then going with that leadership philosophy, what are some of your philosophy as a commander?
A couple things that I try to practice and I try to preach is number one is teamwork. I know for myself, I'm never going to be the smartest guy in the room, so I really rely heavily on my peers, my subordinates, and my leadership. So we got to work together. There's opportunities to recognize folks as individuals, but we don't get anywhere if we don't do it together. So teamwork is very significant to me. Lead by example. And that is not just for squadron commanders and superintendents. Everybody has a leadership role, and sometimes leadership is by followership. But you need to show folks that you're accountable, that you're going to work hard, and that you're doing the right thing even when people aren't watching. But so lead by example. Professionalism is very important to me. When you're in an office and the door is closed, you can be a little looser, but especially when we are trying to show that the Air Force Reserve is a product that active duty should consume, we need to show them that we're top notch. And so whether you're a civilian, a TR, an IMA, which we don't have, or an AGR, we should be showing that we are really good at what we do. We're professionals, and we're not just here just because we're trying to get a couple points towards our 20-year. We're here to do an operation. We're here to push Air Force Reserve going forward. And then I guess the last thing is folks need to lean forward. We're not going to get anywhere if we're just status quo. So keep pushing the envelope, because that's why the wing is where it is folks behind us have pushed the envelope to make us a wing. And that needs to continue to happen. We need to continue to evolve so that we can be an impact on the larger Air Force and the Department of Defense.
Yes, sir. And I think that, when we talk about that evolution, we talk about that leadership philosophy as the reserves has evolved. We used to be strategic, right? So back in the day, it was much more strategic. I think you had a good point there about, people just coming to get here for points, and then how do we present ourselves? As we've become more of an operational reserve, the importance of the reserve has made itself much more prevalent. I didn't know if you could speak to a little bit more of your perspective on that, of what it looks like from an operational perspective, knowing that we have the constraints with TRs and we have the constraints with the reserves and the baggage that we bring with that conversation, and make that relationship better to be a much more readily resourced reserve.
Yeah, that's a really delicate balance. There's a place for the traditional reserve of old, where we're focusing on getting our training squared away, getting our IMR squared away, making sure that when the flag goes up, we can come in and backfill. But as we've discussed before, right now there's way more requirements than there are resources. And so big Air Force and the Department of Defense really are relying on us to be a force provider. And so going forward, we have to be very honest with our folks about what our expectations are. If I didn't mention it before, expectation management is a big thing for me. I like to let people know what I expect of them, so that they can plan accordingly. And with our new folks coming into the reserves, specifically into a cyber operations group, highlighting the word operations, they need to be ready to perform. And we should have those conversations honestly with them. With that, it's our responsibility as leaders to define what is that balance and how do we make sure that they can serve in the reserves in a manner which allows them to be flexible with their civilian employers, allows them to have a family life, but also has them being operational piece of the United States Air Force. So it's a really, really challenging conversation. Some of the older folks like you and I, they grew up on the old reserves, but it's more an operational piece of the Air Force now, and we need to be very transparent about what our expectations are, and then it's us as leaderships to try and formulate the right solution so you can still serve, but you still have that flexibility of being a reservist.
Right. And the uniqueness that you have compared to some of the other staff is that you're a TR leader, right? So as a TR leader in a leadership role, a very significant leadership role, balancing that civilian career, that family life, and being that TR leader. Are there any tricks of the trade that you've learned of how to balance that out, or any kind of advice that you could give to other TRs out there that are trying to work their way to those leadership roles?
So one of the things I hit on earlier was teamwork. So Lieutenant Colonel Whitehead and Chief Howard, full-time guys, allow me to be a TR leader. I rely heavily on them, will rely heavily on them to kind of keep the boat going in the right direction. And then being able to give some vector checks here and there when I'm not in status. But the reality is as well, if you're going to be a leader, you have to understand that you're always a leader, even though you're only going to be in status a short time each month. But you really do. You have to lean heavily on your folks who are full-timers, whether you're an ART or an AGR. And then you have to be very direct on what you want, going back to expectation management. But it's a challenging balance. But if you care about the Air Force Reserve and you care about continuing to evolve, you find a way to make it work, but it's important to have a balance. That's for sure. Right.
And I know when I'm speaking to our enlisted leadership, I like to peel back the onion. We're not here for the pay, right? Obviously, there's got to be a certain love for the labor that we put into this. The fact that, being a previous TR, and I'm sure you could to echo this, that there's going to be far more demands on you than you have time, whether it doesn't matter what status you're in. But how do we find that balance and then also drive that to the resiliency of your family, resiliency of yourself. And then how do I continue to still feel like I'm being effective as a TR? And what does that look like? Sometimes I give a little bit more here, a little less there. But do you have any kind of words of advice as far as ways to keep that resiliency going as a TR leader?
So definitely, good communication is going to be really important. You need to let your teammates, whether it's your supervisors or subordinates, understand some of the challenges or things that you have going on, so that they can either help carry the load for you, or they can give more to you to help move things along. But resiliency is important. You gotta decompress every now and then, because a lot of us, if we're a TR and we're on a drill weekend, you're going 14 days straight, and so you have to make sure that you're taking time, you're taking care of your family first and foremost, because if you're not watching out for your family, your career is going to be in jeopardy very quickly. But then going back to what I said before, keep in touch with your teammates, let them know whether you need help or how you can help, and that will help their resiliency as well as keep you going on the right page.
Right. And then us as leadership, always looking at our airmen and making sure we're engaged with them on a regular basis, and helping see some of those signs of stumbling. Right. I know that there's days that my wingmen, from the staff to leadership, will ask, "Hey, how are you doing? Everything good? You're looking a little rough today." I mean, I know that Sergeant Vealman's called me a couple times. I was like, "Chief, you need to eat," right? Because you can get into that. So yes, sir. But it is one of those hard things to what the demand of an operational reserve is, and then on top of that, balancing all those other pieces of that pie that we have, right?
Yeah, that's the challenge, and that's hopefully the areas where we'll definitely come together and find the right solutions to make sure that all of our wingmen have that balance squared away.
Awesome, sir. Well, I know that your time is very valuable, but I want to give you one more chance to kind of any parting words or words of wisdom that you might have to the 960th Cyber Wing out there in your group.
I guess simply put, I'm really excited to be back in the wing. It was a great experience for me when I was at the 960th Network Warfare Flight, now the 52nd. And I really look forward to getting back into this team and seeing the continued evolution and watching the successes of all the great members of this team. And it's gonna be a good time. So I'm looking forward to being here. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And to the gladiators out there, thank you for all you do. Thank you for your commitment to your country. Thank you to the commitment to the Air Force. And thank you to your commitment to us as fellow airmen. So I hope you have a great day.